Hi everyone, welcome to Analysistrends. In this video, we are going to discuss about the chapter 5.3, which is Prioritize Requirement. In the previous video, we have discussed about how do you maintain requirements, and before that, we have understand how do you trace requirements. The only thing that we do in this chapter is basically whatever requirements we have, we try to trace them, track them, maintain them, update them, and then prioritize them based on the stakeholder need as well as the complexity, or there might be any other influence or factor that is actually dependent or makes the impact of prioritization. So to better understand this, we're going to jump into the actual website, which is our own website called analysistrends.com. And in this, we already have trace requirements there. If you're new to the website, then please click on the logo there. You will able to see the first business analysis block. In that, you got a BA concept where you can hover and find out all the relevant information related to Babok. This is chapter 2 topics, chapter 3 topics, 4 and 5. Currently, we are discussing about the prioritized requirements, and whatever we have discussed in the trace requirements is already been mentioned here. When you scroll down to the bottom of trace requirements, you will able to see the watch now, as well as you will able to see the traceability metrics, where you can download these metrics as a template and use to trace requirement. Moving forward, we already discussed about the maintain requirements in our previous video, where you can go and watch how can you maintain those requirements. In this video, we are focusing mostly or majorly on prioritize requirement and why we need to prioritize the requirements. So understand that you are working as a business analyst and you got a set of requirements, let's say 100 requirements at your desk. Now you want to know that which requirements I need to start or do the task or analyze the task first. Then you'll identify that how will I pick those 10 items that I need to work this week. So that is a first step you take in order to prioritize requirements, right? Now, how do you do that? The purpose of requirement is also important here. You rank requirement by importance. Let's say you've got 100 items and you rank them based on the importance of each of the requirement. How do you decide the importance? It depends on how the requirements are being designed. So let's take an example here. So let's say you're working for a mobile development application requirement where people or customer want to log in on the application in order to fill a form, and once they log in they will able to see a banner where they will have a discount available on that particular uh, page. Now consider there is first requirement that you need a login page, second requirement is you need a login form, third requirement is you should have a banner as soon as the customer logs in. So out of these three requirements, can I prioritize the third requirement first in order to create a website banner? Even if I do that requirement or prioritize the requirement first, yes, I can do that as a prioritization technique and do the, I mean, developers can start building the uh, banner at the very first instance before even creating login or before even creating any other requirement. But that is not completely satisfied. That is not completely been used or completely been tested, right? Because that requirements can be still created and can be kept as hold a requirement until the two requirements have been pressed. So to give you more understanding, you can prioritize requirement. That is fine. Any requirement that is done first might be dependent on the complexity as well as the efforts. So this is all the whole story. Let us deep dive into this subject first and try to understand. Then I'll explain you with a simple example. So how do you maintain, or sorry, how do you prioritize requirement? You prioritize requirement based on the ranking, based on the importance of that requirement. How do you prioritize? You rank by the stakeholder importance, how much influence of a stakeholder is involved in a requirement. You adjust the context changes, identify interdependencies between the requirements, and which gives you the maximum value. So based on these four parameters, you can prioritize the requirements. Next, moving into more inputs. What kind of inputs do you need to prioritize the requirements? Whatever requirements you have already maintained, right, on the designs you have maintained, you need those as your inputs in order to prioritize requirements. First, the basics of prioritization. First is a stakeholder agreement, that agreement on the prioritization basis of the relevant stakeholders. Some stakeholders might be influenced by this requirement, some other stakeholder might be influenced with the requirement. In order to give both the importance, stakeholder agreement prioritization is must, and you need to also define that based on the goal. Factors influencing prioritization. This is very, very important. Why do someone wants to prioritize the requirements? Some might get benefit out of it, or the project might get benefit out of it. It might be something that is near to penalty or might skew under the penalty. So that need to prioritize in order to stop under going to penalty. It might be having more cost associated to it. It might take longer effort to do it. So we can prioritize that first in order to complete the task sooner. Some requirements might have major risk, right? And to solve or to get those risks resolved, that that requirements can be prioritized first. Dependencies, as I mentioned, coming back to our example, the banner you want to create on the website, that banner cannot be built unless you log in, right? So it's best that you create the login page first and then you create a banner. So dependencies are also important. That means out of three requirements, let us build the first one because the first one is dependent on the second and the second is dependent on the third. Time sensitivity. If the third requires 3 months of time and the first second requires just 2 months of time or 1 month of time, it's better to start with third and keep that hold until these two requirements are finished. But at least the major chunk of the work is already done, right? Stability, very important here. Any requirements you prioritize must have a stable kind of information within that as well as the functionality within. And regulatory and policy compliance, the legal government laws, rules, compliance, whatever comes into picture, if that is impacting any requirement, that need to be prioritized. So these are the main factors that are being influenced for any prioritization that has been taking place for the requirement. Next, the challenges of prioritization. What kind of challenges you might face? The stakeholder conflicts. Definitely, there might be two requirements, one from A stakeholder, one from B stakeholder. And one would say that I need to be doing this task or I need to be having this value coming faster, whereas other stakeholders says that the time complexity is less here and let us do this requirement first. So you need to also manage the stakeholder conflicts by leading it, by providing the actual values of those requirements and then processing that. Difficulties in lower prioritization. Now, stakeholder finding it hard to characterize a requirement as a lower priority because they do not want any priority or any requirement to be marked as lower because everything is important, right? Influence on outcome. Now, stakeholders intentionally or unintentionally influence prioritization based on their own urges, right? So we don't want to include that, or we need to face that challenge and try not to get influenced based on the outcome. And trade-off, necessity trade-off due to conflicting requirements. Trade-off again, this requirement is good than that. This good requirement is giving you more value than that. So in order to avoid all those, you need to be very ready with the challenging of prioritization. Now, continual prioritization is very important. Shifts in prioritization. Evolving context leading to the shifting priorities. Definitely based on the context, the shifting prioritization is required. Some requirements might be irrelevant to the context, but other requirements which are very relevant need to be regularly prioritized. Refinement of requirements. Definitely prioritization at a more granular level as the requirements are redefined. Definitely we need to refine the requirements. Changing basis of prioritization. The basis of prioritization at various stages, based on the context must be varied. Okay, these are the elements or the best practices you can follow in order to prioritize the requirements as a business analyst. Moving forward, we got guidelines and tools and techniques. So guidelines says that whatever requirement prioritization you're doing doesn't matter, but you should have some guidelines and based on what you're making those requirements prioritization. So business constraint is the first one. Change strategy is the second one. Cost, timeline, and value. Domain knowledge, how much expertise you have based on the prioritization you're doing. Governance approach, define prioritization methods already that this is what we're going to do it. Requirements architecture, relationship between the requirements, requirements management tool, attributes aid sorting, and scope, managing scopes during prioritization is very important here. Moving forward, techniques. as you mentioned that prioritization requirement first require the backlog management. In any Scrum team, you'll have the requirements stored in backlog first. Then those requirements are being prioritized and being added to the sprints in order to make sure that that particular requirements are being accomplished within that particular period of time. Now here the same thing here is the backlog management. So these are techniques you would know or you should be able to know before in hand you do the prioritization. Definitely there are many here. I don't want to go to each of them now, but definitely we can cover each of them in the 10th chapter. Moving forward, who are the stakeholders involved and what is the output of that particular requirement? So the stakeholders here involved are definitely the customers, implementation SME, that is the developers, project managers, regulators, and sponsors. Each of them have their own inputs on which item need to be prioritized first out of number of items. And everyone's input is important. And then which one has a more complexity that has been prioritized first, which one has a more regulatory influence need to be prioritized first, penalty first, timeline first, which one is giving more value and benefit, definitely that need to be also prioritized first. So every requirement must have their own attributes before or own factors that have been influenced to make it prioritized. The output of this particular chapter or these steps, what you have done here is prioritization requirements and prioritize design. Whatever requirements we had earlier in the last video, we got ranking for this all the requirements in this chapter, and now we have identified the top requirements that actually need to be prioritized. So the highest value at the first, and you have top designs addressed at the first. So this is all about the prioritization requirement, and moreover it's very generic again, but if you want to know more in detail about it, please do comment. There is a surprise for you guys. If you can go to Analysistrends logo again within the business analysis, you have templates and tools page, and you have all the templates here readily available, and we will be adding more and more sooner. So you can go and download each of the templates. Like for example, you got SRS template, and we have more specific like what it is, what is the template structure that you need to follow, when to use that template, what is the outcome of the template, and the template structure, that is an actual template you can download, and the template structure, that how this particular SRS is being defined. So this is all free to download, free to use. So go and explore the website. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned and subscribe my channel, comment in the comment section, and follow my LinkedIn channel. Thank you so much. Signing off. Goodbye.